Hello, everyone. How do you decide that you've done a good job? I used to work in aviation operations, and I had a really solid set of metrics that told me I was doing a good job. If I made a flight plan that was safe, legal, no one died, and got people from A to B with the lowest possible cost and resource used, I knew that I was doing a good job. That made me really confident to be questioned. And in fact, in that industry, it's really common to get a colleague to double check your work. It's procedure. Because we knew that double checking wasn't criticism. It wasn't undermining us. It was making us stronger. We knew that small mistakes could cost lives, and no one wants that on their head. So we held each other accountable. Before working in aviation, I was a ballet dancer, as you can tell. And now I'm the artistic director of a dance company. And in this industry, I feel a lot less secure saying that I know that I'm doing a good job. As a dancer, of course, I trained very hard to reach a place where I could say I could consistently do 3 pirouettes, and I could hold my leg up here. I can't do either of those things anymore, and I'm not going to prove it to you. Nowadays, I measure myself against a set of metrics as well, I suppose. You know, I can say that I can measure myself by how many people I can get into the audience of our shows, or whether I can secure funding for my company, or whether I meet the KPIs in my government grant. Looking at you, Minister. But at the same time, all of those things can feel really distant from the heart of the work that we do. Art is so difficult to measure because, first of all, a great new idea, an idea that's ahead of its time, is probably not going to attract audiences. And impact is sometimes really slow to surface and impossible to measure when it does. So how do we create an accountable arts sector when the value of what we do is so intrinsic and so ineffable and so immeasurable? I think it would be really easy as an artist to shy away from having those questions asked. But I don't think that we can. I don't think that we can say that just because the questions are difficult to answer that we're not going to try. Because that puts us at risk of losing credibility as a sector. It puts us at risk of losing our voice in the conversation about our worth. And it puts us at risk of being measured against other people's metrics. Now, these metrics can sometimes have a lot of value. They can be about community engagement, or the number of school kids who go through our programs, or the number of events we offer for free to underprivileged communities, and all of those things are great, but they're still not really measuring the value of our art. As an artist, it's very difficult to be questioned because your work is so personal. It's so much a part of you, and when you offer it out to people, if they reject it, it can feel like they're rejecting a part of you. Also, often the systems that we have to go through to get funding are requiring a skill set that we never trained for. We're asked to produce budgets and an essay and explain how our ideas are going to measure up, rather than actually how we're going to implement them or how they're going to impact people. I will give you a little example, which I think should be fairly universal to understand. Imagine it's 1889, and you are given a funding proposal for a little guy named Vincent, who's a painter. He's a bit weird. His education is spotty. He has a reputation for falling out with people. And so you say no. Doesn't make sense. He didn't even have a plan for where he was going to exhibit his art. So he paints a painting. And even his brother Theo, who's his biggest fan, says, I think you missed the mark on that one. He said something along the lines of, in the pursuit of style, you fell short of true sentiment. And the painter himself, many years later, said that painting wasn't good, classed it as a failure, according to the Arts Journal. That was a failure. I made the stars too big. He said that. Of course, I'm talking about Vincent van Gogh's The Starry Night, which is now hanging in the Museum of Modern Art and is valued at over $100 million, if it can be valued at all. So, if we're asking the wrong questions, we might miss out on the next Van Gogh. Of course, I'm not arguing against KPIs. If we don't ask any questions at all, we risk waste, we risk artists becoming complacent, and we risk having vanity projects funded with public money and no public benefit. So once again, how do we create an accountable art sector? As someone who is in the extremely uncomfortable position of both having to make bids for funding and also decide how that funding gets used when I commission artists and I hire artists for my company. As in that position, I feel like I have to hold myself so accountable, and I have to hold the people around me accountable as well. And maybe that's the key to an accountable art sector. It's not about the sector as a whole. It's about individuals doing their jobs with integrity. Maybe being an artist is not that different than just being a person. As a good person, you have to make really difficult decisions that not everyone agrees with all the time. And you don't always get to defend yourself, and you don't always get proven right. And maybe that's the same as an artist, that we just have to face up to our work with integrity and transparency. We have to look at our funding with gratitude and with responsibility when we get it. We have to understand that when we don't, we have to keep creating anyway, because that's what we do and that's what we live for. And we have to understand that the important thing is to keep fighting for support for our sector, not just for our pet projects. As funders, we have to hold ourselves accountable as well. We have to make sure that we're asking the right questions so that we don't miss the next Van Gogh. We have to make sure that we're evolving with society and making space for new ways of evaluating projects. I think that at the end of the day, maybe accountability in the arts is really not that different than accountability in anything else. So I ask you as artists to hold yourselves accountable, to be responsible, to be transparent, to allow yourselves to be asked questions. And I ask you as people who might not be artists, if there is an artist whose work you believe in, help them to be accountable. Help them to make that budget proposal that gets their project across the line. Help to set up a nonprofit entity. Help to get that planning proposal for a new arts venue to a place where it can get through planning. Maybe it's about helping an application get from the point where it is to the point where you or your company could get behind it. Because brave new ideas are always going to be a gamble. But let's bet on ourselves.